We're gonna get going as soon as we solve our technical difficulties. So we're good to go?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go a little bit out of order here because we're having some difficulty. We'll get Joseph Singh in here, but we're kind of off. So we're gonna start off with the coroner.
So because we're off, we're doing the coroner. I like that logic.
Yeah.
Don't take it personally.
Yeah. Probably wasn't the best way to say it.
Good morning. So as you can see,
I don't know if the light's on, Dana, is it?
yeah, it's on.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it's just
Sorry.
not. Is that better? Okay. Good morning, Commissioners. Dana Tucker, Cowlitz County Coroner. We had a little bit of assistance, actually a lot for the first page. Kathy was very nice to help us out on that because we weren't able to get everything in time for here. So she did some of the funds in the budget and stuff from 2023. I'm not sure if you have any questions on that or.
When the year to date, you're talking about 23 or 24?
2023. I believe it's year to date from 23 and then, yeah, she doesn't have 24 in here. She has
So
20.
this is a view of the past year.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah.
The auditor's office created this for Kathy. I was expecting her today. So year to date should be the current year, and then at the bottom on the right, that graph should be giving you a comparison of previous years. No, looks like one graph might have been-
Okay, so the upper right is 2024, sorry. And then on the bottom, it's showing 2023 and to current, I believe. Yes. So they went off of 2023 and
I gotcha.
up to current. Correct.
So this, the Commissioner's Office, Office of Financial Management, and Auditor's Office met on this. We're trying to come up with something that gives you current and a little bit of current to budgeted for the current year, and then also a comparison of the previous year. I didn't bring mine. There was an additional graph on the one that we provided Friday, and I don't see it on here, but we were hoping to flesh out whatever question you guys might have or what you want to see going forward so that we can add this and use this for budget reports moving forward.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of offhand, and it's, from my question, you saw I was a little confused. And after pouring on it a little more closely, I see it's really the 2024 actuals to date that are on here, not 2023, although there is a column that compares it to 2023. But the focus here is not a review of last year. The focus is a review of the first 2 months or however long.
That's because we thought the goal was that you guys wanted to see your budgeted amount, your current expended amount, and remaining. I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see this, so maybe I can see this.
It's all right. I have my hearing aids out for repair, and so I can't hear you.
Yeah.
So we thought you guys were interested in seeing the budgeted current year amount, current expenditures and remaining, and that's what should be in the upper left. So there's 4 large buckets that are in each budget, which are personnel, supplies, services, and others. So we're reporting on the 4 buckets. And on the current year budget in the first column,
So you
You-
say 4, I see 5. Am I misunderstanding?
it's 2024. I think I might misunderstand your question. The first column under fund, there are 4 categories that we're reporting on because these are the only buckets that carry over for every budget. Each budget is pretty individual. So we are reporting on personnel, supplies, services, other, and revenue. And you'll see that this is the current year budget, the first column, the year-to-date actuals, and then the capacity remaining. So we thought that was the most critical information that you wanted to see in these management meetings. And then we were trying to present an overview, and it had a comparison to previous years, but I see that column's gone on this one.
Carolyn, the revenue figure in the upper right or upper left column, that would be the fees collected by the coroner's office for their various functions.
Yes.
It doesn't include transfers from the general fund.
No,
Okay.
now that is not true. So this is all of the revenue that they are reporting. So if, just like elections, if she reports that she gets a contribution from the general fund, that would be considered revenue to her fund.
So when do they usually get their contributions? Because most of their funds are general fund, right? Yeah. So that happens at the end of the year, or does that happen quarterly? I'm not sure what the policy is.
Not sure when you do your transfers for coroner. Not sure where Kathy is.
Yeah, I'm here. Can y'all see me or hear me?
There she is.
Sorry. Because the coroner is part of the general fund,
Mhm.
they do not actually show a transfer in from general fund.
Okay,
And so they are a piece of the general fund. And so we're sectioning off just their department expenditures and revenues for this presentation.
So in this case, normally, assuming I can represent anything normally, I think of linearity. So I look and see that bulk of the revenue has already occurred. And that causes me to ask a question. Is this a non-linear thing? Is it like the property tax where you have April and October or something like that, which is, I think, kind of what you were driving at?
Right.
Yeah, for the coroner's office, they do, and Dana can correct me, but I believe they do 2 billings a year to get reimbursed for their autopsies from the state.
Yes. that's
And one of those billings is done, I believe, in February for the latter part of the year.
Yes, February 15th, I have to have everything in for the end of the year prior. And then July 1st, July 15th, we go from January 1st to the end of
June, yeah.
June, and then we start the second half. So I turn in actually, it's August 15th, I turn in the first half of the year. And then February 15th, I turn in the last half of the year prior.
So just to be sure, the year-to-date actuals today includes services from the prior year?
That would be Kathy. Kathy
Yeah.
did this for me. She was very
Yeah.
nice to do this.
Yes.
Yes,
So-
okay, thank you. Is there, this is probably for answering Carolyn's question, but it's Kathy and my colleagues, is I have a difficult time trying to figure out what questions I should ask based on this information, and I know I probably repeat my questions in odd ways. Do we ever express things on an accrual basis, and maybe that's easier for us to follow any trends that might occur? So we don't really care when the dollars come in the door. We care when they are accrued, if you will.
Yes. And so for 2024, there's an awful lot of accruals that have not been completed or booked yet. So several of those will be done this month in the month of March. So they may not be reflected in these numbers yet. It's a timing issue. You're correct. So one of the things that we wanted to show with this is that, are they on track for what they've been budgeted and what they've spent so far this year or earned this year? And so they are on track on their personnel expenditures as well as services, and on their revenues. I'm not sure if they're going to be booking an accrual to move those revenues out and move them back to 2023. I'd have to check with Kaylee on that. But for last year, we're also showing last year's final numbers, or as final as they can be until accruals are finished. But for last year's numbers, they actually did not exceed their budget. And that was partly because they didn't hire all their personnel they were authorized to hire. They had been authorized to hire, I think, 2 more positions in the latter part of the year, and they were hired later. But they did they didn't exceed any of their budget categories. And their revenues, as I said, they're not completely final depending upon accruals.
Okay, I noticed that the revenues for the current year of the budget seems to be less than that of last year. And I thought Dana was trying to use advantage of the fact that she has one heck of a good facility to try and bring income and coalescing efforts from other counties. And I thought that was a good idea, but I don't see that reflected here.
Yeah, so, I mean, deaths come in waves. So sometimes we'll get like a whole bunch at once and then it will, taper off, but, we usually catch up, in one
So-
point in time. So right now, so I did on, I believe your next page, I was working on the stats for the, 2023 end of year, stats. And so we saw, let's see here, we had 40 outside autopsies last year. And right now we are currently at, is it eight outside autopsies currently, but that can pick up too, so.
Yeah, but I'm questioning something at a slightly higher level. The budget for 24 is your best guess. And when you show your best guess is substantially less than what you had last year, that's the question that I asked, and is what's the reason for that? And it could be any number of things, including, well, I'm trying to be conservative so I can surprise myself and others positively, or I've got more advertising to do, and I don't have full, any number of answers, but for me to understand that.
I do know why last year's revenue, the 80,300, well, the 79,778 number is higher than what we have budgeted this year. Last year, there was a billing for 2022 that Dana had to perform and had to catch up on some of the billings that had not been done. And so
I remember that now. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that
our-
was just kind of an aberration.
yes, so our
Right.
23 revenue was a little bit higher on the reimbursements from the state because of that.
So asking, without too much folderol here, so your revenue at 44,000 now, do you really expect to be only at 18,000 for the balance of the year? Anyhow, I would expect that it'd be higher, but that's just a guess.
Yeah. In my opinion, looking at what they bill normally, they bill, and Dana, I may be incorrect on this, but when they bill for their 6 months worth of activities to the state, that billing is anywhere from 15,000 to 30,000.
Yeah, and I wish I would have brought those in with me. I'm sorry, I didn't even think about it, but I have the total amounts for all of last year. They're in my office of what we can expect. And then also, Christy ran the outside autopsies that we have received, and we're still short, not too much, but our revenue, we've received 26,900, and the total is 31,400 from the other counties. We still have an outstanding balance of, I think, three invoices, so a total of 4,500, which doesn't bring that up much, but there's still some out there. And I'm not sure if we've gotten our autopsy reimbursement yet from the February. I don't think we have.
Mm.
But I could be wrong.
So from what I'm hearing, this is a report where it's just not the coroner, it's other departments. So we're trying to make a common report that we can look at. And actually, I don't have, now that I know what I'm looking at, I don't have any issue with that because then you can kind of see trends and whatnot. The only thing I might say is if you have unusual accrual activity, it might be a footnote or something that there's
Mhm.
accrual sitting out there, Kathy, that we haven't accounted for. Maybe something of that nature, just so we're aware.
Yeah,
But
we can work with the auditor's office at looking on those, but these reports, as we go through the remainder of the year, they'll get, once the accruals are complete and most of the financial adjustments are made, for the financial statements for the prior year, they may affect the current year and they may affect the prior year numbers, but they'll get, more and more, solidified as we proceed during the year.
they'll get truer as the year goes on. Yeah, good.
Yeah, if I could add on to that, I like it. And it's at a level that I think you deal with the other stuff maybe as a footnote. And I'm not sure this goes any place, but as I take a look at one of the numbers for 2023, we budgeted 80,300 and we were slightly under. What comes to my mind always is what kind of number tolerance do we look for? You could spend an eternity to get a more refined number, and that doesn't make any sense. But in this case, when we budget something, a curiosity arises is what did not happen? And it's probably insignificant, but that's just a question that comes in my mind.
So what's really interesting about this too is these budget numbers for the prior year, as well as the current year will include all budget amendments. They're not static. During the year, if they had a budget amendment, it will include that budget amendment. So it's picking up really revised budget. And so we may have overestimated a little bit on the revenue side when we were revising it.
Yeah, you hit the point that I know that we do budget amendments along the way, so I expect kind of the final 223 budget is the number I see there, and it should come pretty darn close because we have all the knowledge there. And in this case, it's so small a difference, it's not worth commenting on unless there's something hidden in there. And that's where I would count heavily on you and the coroner in this case on saying, well, no, there's no issue, or what happened is the contract failed or something like that.
Yeah. There wasn't anything unusual on this one.
Well, I think we all kind of like this format and be consistent across departments and stuff. And I think, yeah, as Commissioner Morton said, if there's something oddball that pops up, it could just be a great footnote or.
Well, at the same time, the numbers might not be raising concerns, but your other statistics indicate some trends. And you'd mentioned interest in trends.
Right.
And I find where you parse out the causes of death, and the two things jumped out at me as I jumped ahead and looked at the next page. One was that suicides continues to increase, and fentanyl is replacing the other drugs as a leading cause of death.
Yeah.
That's
I would expect the budget categories to be, or budget overall in the individual categories to fluctuate between being a bit too ambitious and not ambitious enough, a little high, a little low. The only question I would ask, and probably Kathy has a good handle on that, and I will count on you to alert me and say, well, you know, the difference of, an aggregate difference of 3% is insignificant. Don't worry about it. Or you might say, do worry about it because it's all in one spot. It's the analysis on that.
Or if there was a concern, here's what she's done to correct it. Rather than waiting for us to say, oh, you better do something about it. Staff will already make those recommendations.
I think when we were looking at revenues, we were going off of autopsy reimbursements for the full year, and then also the income from the other counties. We also have the Oregon procurement agencies that utilize our office to do corneas and tissue and stuff. And that contract has not been set up yet or renewed. I'm still talking with the PA's office and stuff like that, because they usually will, they pay for the services in to utilize the facility. So we haven't had too many of those this last year, probably because we haven't had enough time to go through and get all of that situated and everything with the other stuff we were doing. So hopefully we can get that set up too.
But
On the 2023 stats, are we there? Or I lost track of whether we're,
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that?
at some point when you get to the 23 stats, I have some questions,
Oh, okay.
but I don't know if we're there yet.
go ahead.
Okay, I guess we're there yet. So, one of the things that is striking to anybody who looks at the 2023 stats is fentanyl. No surprise there. You know, when you go to the supermarket and you buy something, and it turns out it's got botulism in it, it gets recalled and there are big announcements. Do we do any PSAs about be careful if you're buying fentanyl from this source that it's really bad news or anything like that?
Well,
Of course, you can't really say that
Yeah.
without endorsing some other source, and so.
well, I've tried to work on our website and doing a thing on, you know, drugs and stuff like that. And of course, you know, everybody does the drugs are bad and stuff. But right now, a lot of, and we can't really go back and figure out, did they know they were getting fentanyl, or did they just get something else and it was mixed with fentanyl? It's really hard because they're deceased, so we can't ask them. But what we do know is fentanyl is mixed with everything, pretty much. As you can tell, I tried to break it down as much as I could to see, you know, how many are just fentanyl to how many just methamphetamines, methamphetamine and fentanyl, cocaine, just cocaine. Obviously, there's only been one death last year that was just cocaine, and nothing else in their system, but most everything else has fentanyl in it. There's only 7 of the deaths that did not have fentanyl in them. Everything out of the 49, there was 42 with fentanyl. Whether that was, you know, 11 just fentanyl, everything else is mixed with either methamphetamines or cocaine or something else with the fentanyl. So it's kind of hard to, I mean, it's kind of hard to just get out there and say, you know,
Yeah.
this is, you know,
I was at,
bad. So
I was at a school board meeting last week, and they were talking about, they had counselor and teacher talking about a deal that's coming up. They hold it at a church. They do it every year. I forget the name of it. And it's like for 6th grade kids and stuff they bring in. And they had a law issue, and the thing that came to my mind, because I'd sit down with Christie and we talked about this fentanyl issue and that it can be put in a gas form into vapes and different things. Do they ever involve you guys at
Yeah,
all?
so we've done a couple, we did like 2 different school things with the kids last year. And I always, I always talk to them about drugs and about not taking anything that hasn't been prescribed to them, and all of that. And we want to do a lot more. We've already done 1 this year. We'll have probably a few more. And then we also did the museum. What was that?
Children's Museum. It's a great opportunity to, thank you. It was a wonderful opportunity to talk with the children, the age range. It was neat to see their responses and their questions, and then also be able to talk to them about safety.
How many did Stephanie say went through that?
Oh, I can't quite remember. It was over 100 kids went through that.
Oh, I thought it was way more than that, like in
yeah.
the 400, something like that. But
Well,
But that's a big part of, what we want to be involved in and stuff, just making sure that the kids know, don't do things out there, but there's only so much we can
It
do.
seems like this is so easy to put in a gas form or whatever and put it into anything. I mean, they could be given something they wouldn't even, may not have intentions to take fentanyl. They
Yeah.
just see it as a vape product or whatever it is, and it ends up.
Well, and then there's also some people out there that are trying to get, the opiates and, the oxy and stuff like that, and everything's being mixed right now. I think last year, well, the year before, when I was in Lewis County, they had this big meeting and stuff, and I think I probably had mentioned it last year, was they had said that the cartel is mixing everything with fentanyl so that it's getting out there more. And yeah, a lot of people probably don't realize that, they're getting fentanyl, but right now it's almost, with everything being mixed with fentanyl and us saying that everything's mixed with fentanyl, you have to be super careful. They kind of know that there's a chance that there's fentanyl in there, and they're still doing it. But I tried to break it down as much as I could, just so that everybody could see, how prevalent fentanyl is with the drugs. And then the other manners of death here and some of the causes and all of that. And then on the back of that one, there's kind of the stats for year to date, which was the 13th is when I was trying to pull those. And we're at 14 accidentals, so 9 drug overdoses currently. And we still have some other ones that aren't accounted for in here too, and more pending ones. But we tend to get, it seems like we tend to get a lot of drug overdoses coming in, and so they're pending until we get everything back on those.
How do I interpret the COD on number 12?
The cause of death?
Yeah, because everything is sort of related to the cause of death, and then it's indigents, and I don't know what to do with that.
Oh, that's just, sorry, I was trying to, on the other page, I think I separated indigents.
Oh,
But I didn't get it on the 2024. I just wanted everybody to know that, how many indigents so indigents or abandoned, basically. A lot of them are the families abandoning them, and then it becomes the county's responsibility. So last year we had 12, which 4 were from the previous year that we had to take care of. And currently we've taken care of 1 indigent so far this year. But then again, you have to realize that doesn't mean that we don't have more indigents or unclaimed over at the office. We have to hold them for 90 days before we can do anything with them. So this only reflects what we've taken care
Yeah.
of so far.
If I were to go to your webpage or HHS webpage, would I get to see this information?
Yeah, so I have the stats for 2022 on there, and then I was just trying to complete the 2023, so that one will be up there. And then I've tried to create multiple pages where it will reflect these.
Okay, is it more useful to put it as a spreadsheet with the factors like fentanyl, methamphetamine, and a checkbox for 11 people had this, and this, and you could see it categorized? This is, it's, I'm always inclined to try and add numbers up, but I can't here because
Yeah.
everything's,
No, this was just me trying to pull numbers really fast
Right.
last week.
so my
So-
question is it useful to you? I think it'd be useful to me to see a spreadsheet with the confounding elements or compounding.
Yeah.
Okay, as a check.
Mhm.
And the suicide might fit in that category too. There's a line, suicide, 29 people, and there'll be a check mark by each element that actually pertain to
Yeah.
that suicide.
Yeah, pulling stats on our system should be easier than it is, but with
Yeah,
so many
yeah.
different things to check and so many different things to input. If they're not all specifically the same verbiage, then it's not going to grab everything.
Yeah.
So it takes quite a while to get what I
Yeah,
do
and
have
I'm
here.
not trying to be a voyeur here and trying to get more information for just arbitrariness. This data to me seems something that if I were at the state DSHS or the national CDC or something like that, I'd want to see it in a way that's pretty digestible. And it's a lot harder this way.
Dana, I've got a little question
Uh-huh.
on what the numbers refer to. Your first item says total cases. Can we assume that those are the number of people who died in Cowlitz County in 2023?
Ones that we've been notified of. So if they die at the hospital within over 24 hours, we don't get notified of those ones. So these are all our cases that we took as ME cases or the ones that we've been notified as non-ME cases. So hospice, nursing homes, hospital cases that are within 24 hours. That's the total that our office had cases on.
So,
So that won't be the
So the
total
total deaths,
deaths.
I guess that would be the health officer who
Yes.
signs those certificates. Okay.
So
Right.
the total deaths would be something that the health department would have that amount. This is just where we have to be notified or we've taken jurisdiction over.
And about 1% of the population, is that par for the course? So roughly 1% of our population that you end up
Yeah.
getting notified of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, those are the ones. So if you look on so we took 361 of those cases. The 716 are the hospital, nursing home, hospice deaths that we didn't respond to. So the ME cases, most all of those are ones that we actually responded to. And that is up, and I don't.
Those all did not result in autopsies.
No,
Okay.
no.
So then you look at
So-
one, you have to say, we need an autopsy, or we can come up with an explanation. from
Exactly.
other-
So down at the very bottom, we did 97
97. that's-
97 autopsies out of all of those.
So the numbers under the accidental, those are just the number of cases. Those aren't the number of autopsies.
No.
Okay.
Autopsies are different than these. These are just the manners of death. You have natural accident,
Mhm.
homicide, suicide, and undetermined. So out of those manners, I was trying to break it down into you know, how many of each
Right,
were
okay.
there. So the accidents, there was 89 accidents. There was, and then 2022, there was 65 accidents. So 49 of those were drug related. 19 were motor vehicle accidents, 5 drowning, 3 another type of asphyxia, falls, fire, you know, stuff like that. Some of them aren't as relevant, I guess you could say, because more people want to know the certain types as to everything,
Mhm.
like the naturals. I mean, we put that in there, but I don't, on the back page for the 2023 end of year report, I don't have every single category for naturals, just mainly the main ones that you see: cardiac, pulmonary, liver, cancer, neurologic, and gastrointestinal. So,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean that those are the only ones. Those are just the main ones.
You asked a really interesting question. Is 1% about the right number? And I'm trying to find that, and my guess it's on the low side, but I don't know.
Our amount of cases was up from the year before, and I didn't put the 2022, but I think it was like about
Yeah.
900. If I remember right, it was a little over 900 cases total from the year before, as to last year, 2023 was up in numbers.
So about 10 years or so ago, Cowlitz County made news by having the highest number of opioid deaths in the entire state per capita. And it turns out that the standards that Tim had used the standards were not being used in other counties. He had pioneered a new technique that identified opioids. And in the years since then, I've noticed we're not number one anymore. It's gotten back to the consistent data. More counties are using the same testing technique that he was kind of out in front of the county on. So it's just one of those cautionary tales. You got to be careful about statistics and percentages, and you got to remember what the base is and what it truly discovers. I think I've mentioned before in meetings that I attended a fentanyl workshop that was sponsored by Senator Cantwell. And one of the big posters was something like 950% increase in fentanyl deaths in Cowlitz County over the previous year. And I said, just from the face, it was not reported in the news. I mean, it's just from the face of it, it was grossly exaggerated, because it doesn't take much to do 1,000, 10 is is 1,000 increase, right? Yeah, depending on your base. So
According to usafacts.org, in 2021, there were 1,044 deaths per 100,000 people in the US.
in the US.
So that's about the right
That's
number.
about right then, yeah. Yep. Thank
Okay.
you.
Welcome.
Anything else? Thank you, Dana.
You're welcome.
Christy,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Joseph, we got your stuff up now. Thank you.
43 cents. Is the green light on?
Morning, Commissioners.
Yeah.
How's that? Is that better? I have the financial, or the budgetary information on paper with me, but I have not seen it in that configuration. So, perhaps our, Office of Financial Management that put that together could chime in for a moment if I can't actually read it from where I'm at right now.
I'd be happy to.
Thank
This
you.
is Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. So in the upper left-hand corner, the current information, the current year budget is 2024. And in the actuals are 2024. Basically, the personnel is it's actually compensation and benefits. And that's basically represents 2 months worth of payrolls. We haven't posted the any payrolls for the month of March yet. And so as you can see, they're on track for actuals versus budget. They're on track to not exceeding their budget for all of their categories. And they do not report any revenues for the museum in the county budget. So that's why there's no budget and no revenues. The bottom left-hand portion is comparing current year actuals 2024 to 2023 budget. And then 2023 actuals are here. They basically don't have any accruals that will have to be booked. And so these are pretty much their final numbers. And so they did not exceed any of their budget categories for personnel, supplies, or services.
So,
And most of their
so Kathy,
budget is personnel. As you can see, we did a little pie chart for year to date. And that's pretty consistent with the 2023.
So Kathy, it is under services that the capital improvements and repairs are listed. Is that right?
Yes.
So they got a new roof and new HVAC system.
No, those types of expenditures for the actual facility itself, those predominantly show up either on facilities budget, or they show up on the a special fund that we have for capital improvements. This is only the general fund expenditures for the museum.
How many employees is that?
One.
We have 1 county employee at the museum and 3 part-time employees of the Historical Society at the museum. So we're a partnership between the nonprofit Cowlitz County Historical Society and the county. So our budget is basically compensation for the director, and then utilities, and then the society covers the expenses for the staff. At the museum, we have a curator, educator, office manager, and then the society does fundraising for exhibits, collections care, and programming.
So what we see here is completely independent of the what you just described. This is only what impacts the general.
This is the
fund.
county side of the budget, not inclusive of the Historical Society.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions on the budget and the actual slide?
Not on the budget, I don't think, but I do have sort of a general question. Do you want us to care about the Historical Society? I'm asking Joseph at this
Okay.
point.
Well, I can include that information if the board is interested, because it is a partnering venue with the county. I think that it would make sense to include that, and I could provide information regarding the Historical Society if the board is interested in hearing about that. I don't have it on me right now, but I can send it to you if you'd like.
Without that part, there would be no museum, right?
And it would be a fragment of the museum, I guess, because the society pays for the exhibits and the programming. So if the society didn't exist, then either the county would um, either, or I would request the county to provide funding for that, or the county could not provide funding and the museum would have much more limited capacity.
Yeah. I don't know what I would recommend.
I think the fact that it's a single FTE and then the building and utilities is a pretty good bargain, since the societies contribute so much more, and we have to store that property somewhere. It would either, or not,
Mm.
that is,
The society basically pays for the operations of the functioning components of the museum. So our educators out in classrooms doing education programs. If we didn't have the society staff, I wouldn't be able to go out into schools and do programs, for example. I just would be grounded at the museum the whole time and couldn't go off site to schools. So, yeah, so the society, it's a nice partnership, I think, because the county has a department with one full-time employee, yet the museum department really operates with 4 people in the building at any given time. It's got 2 3/4 time employees and 1 part-time employee, half-time.
If you wanted to provide that however often we do that, Joseph, I wouldn't mind seeing it. I think it just helps solidify, it shows that this really is a partnership over here.
Right.
It's just not,
Yeah, you could fit the other half of the operation
yeah,
together.
the
with-
county's just not paying to have Joseph sit in there. It's really a partnership, and this is
Right.
what we get out of it. So I wouldn't mind seeing it.
Okay, I can include that next time. And-
and you've got a first Thursday program coming up next month?
Our first Thursday program might not happen next month because we have the Spring Art Show going on in that same room. And Spring Art Show, the intake day is tomorrow. And on Saturday, this Saturday at 2 o'clock, there's a reception that's open to the public for the Spring Art Show. So we might not have a first Thursday because they'll be in that room. We had an awesome first Thursday last time. It was on shipbuilding in Vancouver and Portland for Liberty ships and Victory ships. And we had a pretty good audience there and a remarkable speaker. And we have, he was an author too. He brought copies of his book, which we have available in our gift shop.
Did he talk about Vanport?
Did he talk about
Vanport?
Vanport?
That was the community that got wiped out in the flood after the war.
Oh, no, I don't know if he talked about that.
Delta Park is where it used to be, if you know where
Okay.
Delta Park is on the freeway. Did I just give a history lesson?
So this is the first time that we're doing this format, and I wasn't sure exactly what you all were looking for. So if there's additional information that you would like in a future report, let me know. So I'll include information about the Historical Society's operations so that you can see that there's a partnership going on. The slideshow I put together, I just answered all the questions that were on the template and included some pictures. And I focused primarily on things that would have been a county expense because we're talking about county dollars and taxpayer dollars regarding the upkeep of the museum facility. So the stuff I have to talk about here is pretty much 100% about facilities. Although I did have a slide here just to mention that we are a partnership with the Historical Society and that we have programming that goes on. We have our first Thursday program. There's Jerry Kelly, one of our life members, with a program on tools, on logging tools there. And then our most recent one was in that center top with the Liberty ships, although he doesn't have the screen up. We have a gift shop that sells local author books and other gifts and trinkets. We've had school groups come to the museum, as you can see here in this picture, although mostly Danielle, our educator, which is standing up in the upper left corner by the cabin, it's easier for her to actually go out to schools and bring her traveling trunk program. And she does a 3-day, it's usually structured where it's 3 days in a row, where she goes into a class for one period and does a 1-hour-long program over the course of 3 days. And usually she stacks several classes back to back with it. In fact, last year she just hit over 1,000 students that she touched with her programming. Before that, we were in the hundreds, and now she's at capacity, broke the 1,000 student record, and we are definitely back to 2019 levels and above as far as education programming. So we're very pleased to see that. But she's about maxed out as far as her ability to go out to schools, and we're unfortunately having to turn away schools that ask for her programming because we're already booked out. The next slide, please. I'll just be very brief here. So we have regarding facilities issues, we have a hallway ceiling that collapsed pushing 3 years ago when a condensation unit leaked from the old HVAC system. I won't bore you with the details here. I have it all written down as far as actions and ways we can move forward on it. But it's not critical to the function of the building, but it is an aesthetic thing. When people come to use the meeting room, that's the meeting room door right underneath that light. And that's what it looked like right afterwards. And if we fast forward to the next 2 slides, you'll see the current condition of it now. And anyway, I put a few work orders in, but they haven't had a chance to either repair it or find somebody to do the repair work on it. I know that our facilities are really stretched thin, and that they're working as hard as they can on everything, and they're doing the best good for the most people that they can. We are a small department. We are a smaller building compared to some of the larger facilities. So I just wanted to mention that this is something that I'm hoping we can get rectified. The next one is.
You don't have the condensation that caused it anymore, right?
I don't believe so. I think it's all been rectified. Yeah,
And
there's no
when
more
they
problem there.
Redid the other stuff, so
Right.
it just needs to be repaired.
It just needs to be patched up, I
Gotcha.
think. And then next slide, please. So the pest control has recommended several times that we pull the ivy back from the side of the building to keep basically rodents out of the building. We have not had any rodent problems, but apparently if you can clear a 1 to 2 foot gap, it helps out considerably. Something I would like us to look at is maybe eliminating that ivy, because what we're looking at right there is a pathway that transients will use to cut across the museum grounds. I believe that they hide things in the bushes there. So if we could remove that ivy and maybe replace it with beauty bark, that might eliminate the traffic there as well. Youth Services has a program where they have youth that are in the system that do landscaping work, and they did a partnership at WSU Extension Campus with the Master Gardeners, where the Master Gardeners helped them out in doing some spring cleaning of sorts. And they approached me about doing something similar to the museum. I would not want minors to be working in that ivy there, because God knows what is in there. Could be needles and other unpleasant things in there. That might require a professional or an adult to go through that. But they could come by and do regular groundskeeping at the museum if necessary. And I've also talked to Offender Services. I'm waiting to hear back from them, because they used to have a crew that would come around, and then during COVID that had been suspended. And I think they're coming back around again, but I'd like to coordinate so that they're not on top of each other or doing redundant work. Maybe adult Offender Services could do the primary cleanup, and then the Youth Services could come and do just regular maintenance on a twice a month basis. So I'm working on this one. This is just something I wanted to bring up that was a ongoing concern, because the ivy starts to grow up the walls of the museum. Next slide, please. And then my answers in bold to the questions that were in the template. I basically mentioned all this, I think. Next slide, please. Yeah, here's just an example of the Kelso Garden Club helped do a cleanup of the museum about 3 years ago, and it made a big difference. They put bark chips all around the grounds, and the issue is that when we do a beautification process, how do we maintain it going forward? Because the museum staff is focusing on museum programming and functions, and we do try our best to help out when we can, but sometimes we have our limitations. Although I didn't mind mowing the lawn there once or twice that summer. It was kind of a fun little adventure for a Saturday. So the big one is the next one here, and I think you're all very well aware of this, is the continual activity at the museum back door and often the front door, drug use, paraphernalia, discarded items. Even this morning, and I was just talking to the security here with Phoenix Security, he said there was 5 people hanging around at the back door. When I got there this morning, there was one person trying to kind of figure out what to do with all the belongings that were left by the other 4. It's quite common that we're trying to go to work and then there's an encampment or somebody there, so then we have to go in through the front door of the museum. People are graffitiing quite frequently. We will call in and have facilities remove graffiti, and then a day or 2 later, it's back again. And I do commend facilities for very prompt responses. When I put in a work order for graffiti, they pick it up very quickly. There have been human excrement found around the grounds fairly frequently, and facilities has been pretty quick on responding to that, or biohazard waste. We've had, things like blood splatters on the wall, condoms found on the site. You name it, we have it there, and I'm hoping that I don't know what the solution is, if it's security cameras, more lighting, or some security fencing. I just talked with Will from facilities about putting some kind of fencing around the back area to enclose that staircase and the ADA accessible ramp, that we could then open it up when we are open for business hours and close it when we're not in use, because there's constantly messes there. We can go to the next slide. I've got a little select picture show of stuff. So people like to use the back drain to relieve themselves. That was during the snowstorm. A little bit of graffiti on the back door there. Next slide, please. This was taken last Wednesday, and literally facilities was out there on Monday, the 11th, a week ago today, cleaning up, and then this was back here again a couple days later. So it's like a battle you can't keep up with. There's just so many people that do things to the property there, possibly because of it's so close to Allen Street. We found evidence of fires lit, and that's a picture of the Renton History Museum when an encampment fire got out of control. So I'm worried about this little alcove area where the back door is, creates kind of a habitat or a shelter where people can do drugs. I was meeting with Commissioner Weber a couple of weeks ago. We were walking outside and we saw a guy literally with the tinfoil in his hand and the lighter, and he was ready to go at it. They'll do it daytime, nighttime, anytime. It's very frustrating, and it's also it's difficult to, when you show up for work and you have to either ask them to move along, or we go into the alternate entry into the museum while we wait for them to move out of the back door area. Next slide, please. And this is some cases, this was taken about 1.5 years ago, of some extreme debris that people have left. And next slide, please. And then my commentary here as far as methods of moving forward, and then we can go to next slide, please. I think that's it. Yeah, just Thank you. These are some cards that kids give us when we do our programming. We get lots of thank you notes from the classes, from children. So if you have any questions for me, these are the facilities related concerns that I have for the museum that would impact the county budget. And my primary thought is the back door and either fencing or in a conversation with Commissioner Weber, he suggested even pushing the back door out, putting the back door flush with the with that wall, which would then eliminate that little alcove where so much of the activity is going on.
Any questions?
Thank you. Good presentation.
Sorry, it's kind of a long laundry list of issues that are going on. I'm not sure if this was the right
No.
venue, but this is these are the things that
People say,
I need to have addressed, and that would cost money, and I'd have to submit for a budget amendment to do this once we get the estimates in.
Yeah. It's a shame you got to put up with that, but
Yeah.
I know we talked about trying to figure a fix for you over there and get that done.
Mhm. And if there's any ideas you have or things I can do, please let me know, and I can work with our staff on that too.
well, I know the facilities and maintenance is taking care of the ivy around this building. That's kind of what you want to see happen as well. Although I imagine it'll grow back in a growing season, but I don't know if they've killed the plants, but they've certainly cleaned it up. So
Mhm.
hopefully something similar.
Okay, I'll work with them first then.
Okay. Thank you, Joseph.
All right. Thank you, commissioners.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Carolyn.
Budget sheet up.
Oh, well, that made it easy. I was wondering why she didn't send me one. So I have a very, very short presentation for you. I was asked to come give election updates because we have so many this year, and currently the hot topic is the presidential primary. I was telling you briefly this morning, we had some live ones already this morning, and something that I hear repeated over and over. This is the first time you've ever forced me to declare a party. So today, I'm bringing
Sorry,
you.
this is the first time that what?
This is the first time you have forced me to declare a party. It's an invasion of my privacy.
Got it.
Never done this. I'm not doing it. So today I brought you a little history. I brought dug through the archives, and I am bringing you some pictures of what this election has looked like in Cowlitz County over the years. But first and foremost, the Washington presidential primary actually was voted in by Initiative 99, I believe, back in 1988. So Washington voters have been voting in presidential primaries of some sort since roughly 89. Prior to then, parties used the caucus, and now both parties use presidential primary results, election results, to allocate their delegates. Next slide, please. Before I get started, I have to give some current statistics. Here's some preliminary data. As of March 14th, we received 29,377 envelopes, or 40%, but you'll notice that we've only tabulated 36%. So why the discrepancy? That's because we're required by state law to challenge any envelope that does not have a party affiliation on it. And also, once we separate those envelopes from the ballots, If a voter has selected one party on their envelope and then votes the opposite party or both parties on their ballot, we also have to challenge that ballot. So our current numbers right now, we have 1,685 envelopes that are challenged and 429 ballots that by law we have to reject. I should go back and say that we've actually challenged 2,884 this election for voters that didn't want to mark a party checkbox. But when that happens, we send them a letter that says, hey, you forgot to check a party checkbox. We're giving you another try. So actually 1,199 people have cured that issue with us, leaving us the 1,685. So our canvassing board meeting on Friday will be lengthy if these voters don't cure those. If voters are listening and you have a challenged ballot, you have until Thursday, this Thursday at 5 o'clock to cure that. Next slide, please. So this is the turnout by party in Cowlitz County as it stands right now. It would be interesting to see if there was an unaffiliated or independent option, what that would look like. We used to have that. I'm going to end the presentation with that unaffiliated option and what it looked like in Cowlitz County. But this is what we have right now. 64% of our envelopes have been returned with the Republican oath and 35% have been returned with the Democratic oath. Next slide, Bailey. So I captured some images in Cowlitz County of what our envelope has looked like. This is the dreaded 2024 envelope with the party declaration on the outside of the envelope. Specifically, it's on the outside of the envelope because it has to remain anonymous. Your ballot is anonymous. So if you sign an oath on the ballot, then your ballot is no longer anonymous. Has to be on the outside of the envelope. Next slide. 2020. Here's our envelope from 2020. The party declaration, again, is on the outside of the envelope. The oaths are a little bit different because the oaths are written by each of the political parties, so they differ each year and by party, but substantially similar. Next slide. 16, same thing, outside of the envelope. Again, very similar. Party oaths were a bit different, but not considerably. Next slide. 2012, presidential primaries canceled due to budgetary reasons. Next slide. Okay, this one's a little bit ugly, but in 2008, what you're looking at is an envelope proof from our printer. So you're seeing kind of glue lines, which is what those fuzzy areas are. And also in 2008, we had a flap that came over the front of our envelope that actually hid our signature, and in this case, the party affiliation. The legislature overturned that rule because it is misguiding the public into the idea of thinking that their signature and party affiliation are private when they're not. So counties moved away from that party, that flap covering your signature and your party affiliation, because this is public information and open for inspection. We actually had a full-time position in elections that we lovingly referred to as a stripper, because that's what they did all day long, is stripped the flap off the envelopes all day. That was the first day of processing. Next slide, Bailey. Now, 2004 presidential primary again canceled due to budgetary restrictions. Next slide. 2000, we were voting at the polls. So I looked back at the rules for the 2000. This is actually called the presidential preference primary back then. And I looked back at the rules, and auditors had the choice of either requiring the party affiliation on the poll book as the voters signed in at the polls, or on the ballot itself. And in Cowlitz County, it was on the ballot itself. So that's the actual ballot from 2000. And I wanted to end with those results in 2000. As you saw, we had an unaffiliated option. And back in 2000, 46% of voters unaffiliated, 28% Republican, and 25% Democrat in Cowlitz County. So we certified this Friday, and we did not receive a resolution by the deadline for an April election. So our April election is canceled, giving us a little bit of a break before candidate filing week, the first week in May. You have any questions for me? That made it easy.
How early on Friday?
What was that?
How early on Friday for the canvassing committee?
I think we are starting at 1 o'clock.
Oh, okay, okay, standard time.
I think we're going to provide some options for the canvassing board. You can either review each discrepancy on the ballot, or you can sign off as a whole as rejecting. It'll be up to the canvassing board members.
Hmm.
We've done it both ways over the years, so I'll just leave that up to you guys. I remember in 2006, in the presidential primary, canvassing went until almost 9 o'clock at night.
Hmm.
We won't have that this Friday, but it will be long. Nothing else?
Okay, thanks, Carolyn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any miscellaneous before we moved in to the next section? We're all good?
Yep.
So we'll move into gender review. Corrections, I don't know, we have corrections in here.
You have Captain Moses online.
There we go, okay.
Yes, good morning, Commissioners. Chris Moses with Corrections Department. We have a contract on for tomorrow that will provide our correctional staff defensive tactics training throughout the year at a cost of $268.75 per hour. You have any questions on that?
No? Pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
The other one looks like, who else do we have? Public Works, I think you have a couple of them, but these just looks like a completion letter for the reservoir roof.
Plus our gas, our methane gas project.
Oh, yeah.
Couple of minor little.
Couple minor things.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Moss, Public Services Director. We do have a call for hearing tomorrow also for disposal of county-owned property, our surplus list that Sean's been compiling for a while. I think it's quite large for the call for hearing.
And so on that list, we'll be coming back to you within the next 3 weeks to give details on that during our Wednesday meeting. So we can go through that in full detail. This is just a call for hearing, and I believe it's 3 weeks out from tomorrow.
Okay. Sean's also been working with the sheriff's office on the resolution, which was number 5 on your list for the armored vehicle going to Lincoln County. I think maybe the sheriff's office, did they workshop with that with you guys already?
Yeah, they were in and talked about that.
And then we have items number 9 and 10, which are connected, which is the contribution agreement and also the MOU with Cowlitz PUD on the headquarters landfill gas to energy project. One thing that we did mention that was incorrect in the past was the county was going to get repaid from this project as soon as it was up and running. After visiting with our attorney, Sean's notes were correct that we get paid after the PUD gets made full. So that was one change that was correct in his bullet points, but we want to make sure that was, you guys were aware of that. Our $6 million contribution will get paid after PUD is whole of that project. But of course, we'll have those in detail tomorrow, both of those. And PUD will be here also in the crowd for any more technical questions that may arise tomorrow.
I imagine it's probably going to be very useful to have an overall picture so the public is likely to be unfamiliar with anything. So you'll have to make them familiar with.
That is correct. Yeah, we plan on having a history, tell you what we're currently doing with methane, what the project looks like, what kind of cat engines we're purchasing or they're purchasing, kind of go a full scale of what the project looks like, currently what we're doing and what it'll look like 5 years down the road.
And the contribution comes from which source?
That'd be coming from the landfill operating fund.
Would it be useful to present the Clickitat landfill case as an example?
You have much information?
I'm just,
We have reached out to Clickitat for those agreements and experience with them. We are currently in a public records request for that data.
yeah, no, I was thinking something to show the public that what can be done with that. That's all I had.
Yeah, we can certainly bring that up since they've started to gas to energy. They went to gas to renewable gas. So we can certainly bring up their progression over the years at Clickitat.
Cool.
Might be helpful.
Yeah.
So the request includes our agreement to kick in 6 million.
Correct. That'd be the contribution agreement. Yes.
So it isn't the final agreement, but it's basically sets up, yes, we're okay with that kind of a contribution.
Correct. So PUD could start this process now. We'll be working on a final agreement, which I would guess will take a good 3 to 4 months to finish, to complete.
Once again, the importance of moving forward is that the PUD has some tax breaks and it has some time limits on it.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And we'll make sure we talk about those tomorrow also.
Good. I think that covers all your stuff, right?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Public defense.
There you go.
You have to examine the floor to see if there's a potential trap.
Good morning, Commissioner. Put on the agenda this morning, a little bit of a reworked contract for our conflict attorneys. The last time we were here discussing the contract, Commissioner Williamson specifically wanted me to add verbiage, kind of reaffirming which was already an understanding, but basically the reserved right of the county to determine if the work of the attorneys meets a certain standard, and if not, that we reserve the right to walk away from this contract. I've added that subsection C starts on page 3 and then goes on to page 4, top of page 4, but basically stating that the county reserves the rights to assess and determine if those standards are being met. And if not, we stop assigning attorneys regardless of the contract.
And that's gonna be on this Tuesday?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Okay, but that's not on the agenda at the moment, or have I missed? seeing-
Item 8,
Item 8.
it's actually a motion.
Oh. None so blind as those who need glasses.
And those are the 3 firms that we currently use, that we only use those 3?
We only use those
Okay.
3.
Yeah.
It is, we're in a small community, so sometimes there are in fact people that even have conflicts.
Is your microphone on?
Now it is.
Thank you.
There are folks sometimes that we have to go elsewhere, so there are sometimes that we have to go off contract. Those are rare, I would say less than 10 a year at most on a felony level, but the offers we make, we usually go to Clark County or people we're also familiar with, so.
So Ian, a few years ago, the state Supreme Court issued caseload limits for public defense. That's made a huge difference in the operation of your office. 2 or 3 directors ago, I think. I understand in reading material from the state association that the Bar Association is going to lower that standard. Which means that's going to have a staff implication as well.
Yes. So I wrote a letter
Mhm.
on my own initiative just to be heard. That was before the Board of Governors for the Washington State Bar Association. Fearing that they're doing kind of a broad stroke across the state for an issue that might be unique to larger counties, King County, Spokane County, where they have public defense offices that take up large buildings. I mean, departments within departments, where ours is just a straightforward law office. I'm concerned, I'm greatly concerned about those standards. They're dramatic, they're not gradual. I think they're being proposed as gradual changes. But the long-term impact on our office here in Cowlitz County is going to be massive. I mean, the numbers aren't halved, they're almost cut into a third as to what I can assign a given attorney.
So we'll need 3 times as many?
If these standards are adopted by the Supreme Court, and I've been here many times talking about the needs of staffing, it's hard to get public defenders these days. We would need to at least double our staff. And these are not, the first cut goes into effect in 2025, July. The real drastic changes occur, and that initial one has some logic and sense behind it, but the approach isn't to do it and then reevaluate. It's just the future steps are already set in stone as well. So those cuts are already going to be passed if this is accepted in 2026, and 2027 is when there's going to be, I'm not sure what we will do then, other than just seek out more attorneys if that's the new standard.
Yeah.
It's drastic though. It's a very major change. And I'm yet one voice in the state that trying to say, how are we supposed to do this in more rural counties?
I think it's very clever the way things have been arranged. There are lawyers that deciding we need more lawyers. And concept of conflict of interest and actually taking a look at the metric of an output and all that. Don't bother us with that.
And no one's come down here to determine the quality of what we're providing with the current standards. I mean, it's just an assumption that it's not good enough with the current caseload. So I've asked for that too. I've asked for maybe somebody that's making these requests to come down and assess our attorneys and what we're doing in court. And, I have not received a response to that.
On a couple questions on this contract. How long have we been doing? It's been quite a while.
I think since the inception of our office, yeah, I think we've been 2024, so we're going on 16 years.
And I think from the start, we needed this conflict ability to be able to have somebody quickly, because if you don't have this, it is cumbersome to constantly, we do a conflict check as soon as a case is assigned, make sure we don't know anybody, but if witnesses come about down the road, we've already worked it maybe for a month, I would have to call individual attorneys on an individual conflict basis, and they would negotiate the terms of each case, where this contract allows me just to have that rubric of, it's a felony, it's, a Class B felony, here's what we're willing to pay
Yeah.
you.
And I think that's a good thing. I just wanted to give a sense of history we've had with these people, and really the only change, the major change to this contract is one we requested that gives us an out if for some reason they suddenly stop providing good service.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it is item 8.
Okay, all right, so I should be here tomorrow. Any other questions for the time being? I do think it's something we need to continue to discuss, the new caseload standards, because it's seemingly gonna pass.
Yeah.
I don't
I don't-
believe
Number one, where are we gonna find the people to hire? And number
Right.
two, where are we gonna put them?
And there are more events occurring because we're not the only rural county having a hard
Yeah.
time. So I'm signing up for any and all job fair type, programs that they have. And I know the sore point for the commissioners has also been state funding for our public defender's office. One of the requirements of these new standards is a social worker in our office, which is something I've never requested of the commissioners, but if this is adopted, it's a requirement. So that's another full-time employee my office currently doesn't have that will be mandated to have. So
And-
state
and
funding for these things would be
And
nice.
again, at this point, it's the county that picks up the tab on all of that.
Right.
Yes. We're at a 12-year low for state funding for our office.
On the one hand, they say it's a very important function, but no pay for it.
Figure it
Yeah.
out, yeah.
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 I think the state's response, the state legislature's response is, yes, it is our responsibility and we've assigned it to our partners, the counties.
Yeah.
And without
We're,
much. in the
we're
way of-
only their partners when it's convenient for them.
Absolutely, yeah. Yep, it's just part of the process. We have to continue to go back to them.
Yeah.
In the legislature and say, look, you can't increase the standards. It's a mandate and you're not funding it.
Yeah, there's discussion about a grant that does not currently exist for the social worker part, but until that's actually a tangible thing, it's just talk right now.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's plenty of money in public health. We'll just call it a health emergency.
Okay.
All right. I will
Thanks,
see you
Ian.
gentlemen tomorrow.
Thank you, too.
I think the only other one on here under consent agenda is our agreement with CFM. Probably nobody here. That's probably just for us to look at.
It's our annual renewal.
10 annual renewal, the only changes I saw was on the scope of work, they lined out the top 3 under tailored, and I'm guessing it's because it's mentioned under the main scope of work, and they just felt it was redundant. Everybody, you kind of saw it that way too? It just looked like it was probably redundant. Do you know, and they, on the front page, they don't have the date right. It should be, it would run through 2025, not 2024, but we can correct those things. It looks like we traditionally do this a year at a time. Do you know if there's any incentive for doing like 2 or 3? I mean, do they, instead of 81,000, do they say we'll charge you 78 or?
I think a year at a time is the better thing. What is CFM if not the people we know that are in CFM? And we have no hook on David Hodges, say, or somebody like that. So I think annual is the right.
It just
the
looked
right
like a
thing.
pretty pretty simple termination clauses. We can just say we don't want to do it anymore. So I didn't know if we,
Yeah, you're asking, is there an advantage to having multi-year thing? And,
I don't know that there is.
I look at that often as a sole source kind of thing. If you're dealing with manufacturing, then I understand that that has a big impact because you got all the tooling costs and all that kind of stuff. This isn't like that. This is a PSA.
Service agreement, yeah.
Yeah,
And most of our PSAs are for a year, aren't they?
yeah.
It seems like it. I don't think we have multi-year ones,
Yeah.
do we?
I didn't really have any
A few?
heartburn with it. I just
Yeah.
thought I'd ask on it. Actually, I thought, going back there and actually spending time with them, I felt like they were able to put us into positions that just Commissioner Dahl calling couldn't get into. Or it'd be more.
That'll always
difficult
be
to
the
get into.
case.
Yeah, yeah, so I don't have any problem with it. I just, want to make sure we were all seeing the same thing. Okay. Sounds good.
So we have an executive session
Okay,
and it'll be 15 minutes to start. No, let's make it 20.
for,
Um, uh, Performance of a public employee.
okay, we'll go into executive session, performance of a public employee. We're estimating 20 minutes.
board is extending the executive session for a period of 10 minutes until 11:07. board is extending the executive session for a period of 5 minutes until 11:13 a.m. board is extending the executive session for a period of 5 minutes until 11:21.
Nobody's bleeding. It's all good. Okay, we're back from executive session. No decisions were made. We have no Jessica. I don't see any other meetings. So if we have any miscellaneous before we get out of here? I guess there's a groundbreaking at Sunrise Village in about 30 minutes. Okay, seeing none, we will adjourn.